Okay, class, today I'm going to show you how to paint a sphere and a cube, and I would like you to try to apply some of this information to your current project to make things look three-dimensional, to have things that have shading on them from dark to light, some different values, and think about the detail and the light source that you are using. So what I would recommend you do is find something at home that is round that you can trace for a circle. Maybe something like the bottom of a glass, something about 3 or 4 inches. And I want you to decide where the light is going to come from. Might be easiest to just make that come from above. So that's where the light is coming from here. And choose a color, maybe something darker like red or blue. What you're going to start with is the darkest part. So near the bottom in this case is going to be the darkest part. And that's going to wrap up pretty far around the edges in both directions. Once you have this established, it'll be easier to paint without worrying about going past the edges too much, which I've already done. One thing that will help, guys, is if you turn your painting or turn your sketchbook as you paint, which I'm not going to do here because I think it might go out of the video a little bit. So just getting this darkest area established. And remember, if you're doing this in your sketchbook, for this assignment, I want you to do that in your sketchbook. It's going to dry pretty quick because the water or the paper is going to soak up that paint pretty quick and dry it. So add just a little bit of water around some of these edges to prevent that from drying too quickly. Now, if this is a red ball, then even the top of the ball is not going to look pure white. So let's get some white mixed with red up there. This will be our lightest area. And just get that paint kind of covering the rest of this. Definitely not finished yet. We need to do quite a bit more work. Let's keep working on this top part. So the lightest area, again, don't use pure white. Let it mix with the red or the color that you're using a little bit. Notice how I'm kind of painting in a sort of a curved shape. To make this look three-dimensional, on a round object, your brush strokes and the shading needs to curve around the contours of the object. If you're shading straight across, it's going to look really flat. Okay, so now we've got a light, medium, and darkest area, but we need to blend them. So take your brush, just kind of go on those in between areas. You're going to have to sort of wipe off your brush every once in a while if there's too much paint on there. So I'm going to try to get some of this lightness pulled back into the darker area. If there's too much dark paint on my brush, then it's going to go up into the light area too much. So you can always bring back some light in there if you need to. You can always add more white paint. So you're trying to erase these implied lines between each of these values and try to create a gradation, but doing that in a way that is curved. Blending, blending, blending. The goal is to try to make it so you can't tell exactly where the value changes. All right, right under there, I've got a dark spot that I need to kind of recover there. That had dried already. So always feel free to go back and add more paint. All right, now this light area here needs to be blended as well. Right now it's a hard edge. You can tell where it goes from one value to the other value. So that needs to be blended. You see this is kind of drying a little bit already, so it's not really letting me blend that. So I'm going to have to go back and add a little bit more white again and sort of reestablish that. Use a little bit of water to help you move the paint around more freely if needed. Wipe off your brush if there's too much of a certain value on there. If I'm working in this light area and I've got too much dark paint on my brush, I'm going to notice really quickly if I'm getting too much of that dark value in the light areas. All right, so I could keep blending this longer if I needed to. I'm going to kind of leave it at that for the most part in this area, just for time's sake. One thing I'm going to do is reestablish a little bit more of the darkest value on this bottom edge. Before I finish shading. Notice how that shadow goes up and then curves around the back. Okay, one more thing you can add just for detail. Maybe a couple reflections, like light reflecting off of it. And one more thing is called a cast shadow. I want you guys to do this on the sphere at least, maybe not the cube. A cast shadow is a shadow that's cast onto the surface that the object is sitting on. So I'm going to use blue in this case to add a cast shadow. Notice how it's only touching at that one little point. You're painting, think about where the light is coming from, whether it's the sun outside or it's a light or a candle or something inside. The direction the light is coming from matters because that's the direction that the shadow will go, and the shading should correspond to that. So that shadow would just kind of continue down that way. Don't worry too much about how that looks, but it's going down away from the form. And the shadow will usually contain a little hint of the color of the object as well. I'm just going to add a little touch of red kind of blended in there. All right, so try that for painting a sphere. And painting a cube, I'm not going to do the whole thing. I'm just going to get you started. And I think you can figure out the rest. If the light is coming from above again, then the top should be the lightest part. But again, if we're doing a red object here, the top is not going to be pure white. It's going to be light red. So maybe that kind of value. The edge might be a little bit darker. So just add enough red paint mixed in there that it is darker than the top, but not by much. And then the very front might be the darkest area in this case because of where the light is coming from. So up here, I would use pure red. Now on your assignment, I need you guys to fill it in, okay? Don't just paint little blobs of value. Fill it in all the way to the edges. Might be good to use a flat brush with these kind of squared corners to get into the corner. See how you can paint into a corner like that pretty easily. All right, that is the assignment. Don't worry about a cast shadow on this one. Just establish a light, medium, and a darkest value. And get that turned in as soon as you can.